You'll likely spend at least 3 hours this week just copying and pasting text between different tabs on your computer.
Yeah, easily. It's the modern knowledge worker's absolute worst nightmare.
Right, because you get this massive, incredibly messy assignment. The details are like totally buried in some endless email thread.
Oh, and the project assets are just scattered across a completely chaotic Google Drive folder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And somehow you are the one who needs to turn all of this digital noise into, a clean document, a functioning project tracker, and a polished slide deck for a leadership review.
Because the expectation is that you act as this sort of human router. Like your brain is just being used to pull signal from the noise, format it, and push it somewhere else.
Which is incredibly draining. And my biggest grievance with how people use AI right now is that the standard quote-unquote AI workflow to solve this is just, it's digital manual labor in disguise.
It really is. You're just substituting one form of busy work for another.
You find a file, you copy a giant wall of text, you open up a separate AI chatbot in another tab.
And you painstakingly explain all the context to it.
Right. You wait for a response, and then copy that response back into your workspace. Do that 20 times a day, and you're just as exhausted as before.
Because bouncing between tabs actually increases your cognitive load. The technology is supposed to alleviate that, not add to it.
So our mission for this deep dive is based on this fascinating new playbook for using Gemini embedded directly inside Google Workspace.
Yeah, it's a total paradigm shift.
We're going to unpack how to stop this endless copy-pasting cycle. We're looking at turning a chaotic web of files into a connected workflow, like without ever leaving the ecosystem where your work already lives.
And if we distill this entire playbook down to one golden rule, it is this embedded AI saves the most time when it reduces context transfer, not when it simply generates more content.
Okay, wait, context transfer. What exactly do you mean by that?
Well, generating text is the easy part. Moving context from your brain or from one app to another, that's where the friction lies.
Oh, I see. So the real enemy here isn't a lack of ideas. It's what developers call context switching.
Exactly.
The brain drain of having to re-explain the background of a project every single time you open a new tab or start a new task. Is that the core of context transfer?
That captures it perfectly. It's the friction of repeatedly establishing the baseline facts. A major mistake people make is assuming context just, automatically carries across every app they use.
And traditionally, it really doesn't.
No, it doesn't at all. But with Gemini inside Workspace, 5 core apps, so Gmail, Drive, Docs, Sheets, and Slides, are now designed to support a single connected workflow. The practical takeaway here is to stay in Workspace when both your source material and your final output already live there.
Stay where the work lives. I like that. So to fix this copy-paste nightmare, we kind of have to follow the life cycle of a project.
And the mess almost always originates in the inbox.
Yeah, let's look at Gmail, because that is where the grenade usually gets dropped, right?
Yeah.
Like a manager hands over a broken project, or a client suddenly pivots their strategy halfway through a massive ongoing thread.
And the real task you need to accomplish is rarely sitting neatly at the top of that email.
Oh, never.
Right. It's usually buried under 4 different greetings, 3 layers of quoted replies.
And side conversations about someone's weekend.
Exactly. It requires an archaeological dig just to figure out what you're actually supposed to do.
But using Gemini in Gmail isn't just about asking it to draft a polite reply. It's about having the AI summarize these convoluted threads and extract the specific actionable details.
Because the underlying mechanism here is semantic understanding. The AI isn't just looking for keywords like deadline or budget.
It's doing more than just a word search.
Way more. It's building a relationship map of the conversation to figure out who owes what to whom. Gmail's role fundamentally shifts from a communication tool to a translation tool.
It turns unstructured, messy human conversation into a concrete starting point. Exactly.
Okay, so we have our concrete starting point from the inbox. We know what the boss wants. But a project doesn't live in an email. It lives in a shared folder.
Right, the dreaded shared drive.
Yeah, we have to assess the actual damage across the company's files. That brings us to Google Drive, which sort of serves as the project brain. And I have to push back a little here because Drive is usually where a project looks incredibly organized right up until you actually need to understand it.
Oh, totally. It's just a folder filled with 10 documents, all with variations of the name brief final v2.
And final 7, real final.
Yeah, the real final file name is a universal constant.
So if you're listening to this and thinking, my company's Drive folders are way too chaotic for an AI to make sense of how does Gemini actually parse that mess, let's use the specific scenario from the source material to ground this.
Let's do it.
Let's say you've just taken over the North Star Analytics website relaunch.
A classic, terrible handover scenario. It is a complete disaster. The handover notes are in that Gmail thread we just summarized. The actual project history is scattered across 9 different Drive files with terrible names. The pricing is blocked. It's currently forecasting $1,000 over budget.
And you have an executive review coming up fast.
Right. So in a normal world, how much time are you spending just opening files to figure out what is happening?
In a traditional workflow, you're spending your next 3 hours with a legal pad, opening every single document, skimming for updates, and trying to reconcile conflicting information manually.
But with this playbook, you take that Gmail summary, you paste it into the Gemini panel in Drive, and things change. Drive stops being a static storage cabinet.
Yeah, the AI looks past the chaotic file names and analyzes the actual contents. It synthesizes those 9 scattered files.
Which is wild.
And it goes beyond a vague overview. It extracts specific operational facts. It tells you that exactly 6 out of 18 tasks are complete. It spots the $1,000 budget variance. It even flags that one specific SEO task still doesn't have an owner.
So Drive isn't just a storage unit. It's acting like a triage nurse in an emergency room. It takes one look at the Bleeding North Star project, figures out what is critically broken, and tells the other departments exactly what tools to prep.
That's a great analogy.
Because the most crucial detail I found in this section is that Drive actually generates the specific prompts you will use in the other Workspace apps.
Yes. It hands you the exact instructions to feed into docs, sheets, and slides. And more importantly, it tells you which specific files to attach to those prompts.
So you aren't just blindly throwing every project file into an AI and hoping it understands.
Exactly. You are curating the exact context package.
That is a massive reduction in cognitive load. Oh, and a quick detour for our mobile listeners. There was a fascinating update mentioned in the sources.
Oh, the document scanner.
Yeah. Drive's built-in document scanner on Android and iOS can now scan multiple physical pages and automatically separate them into clean, digitized documents.
That's huge.
Right. So even if part of this messy project handover included literal paper notes on someone's desk, you can pull them into this connected digital workflow instantly.
Bridging the gap between analog and digital context is just vital these days. So, our triage nurse has diagnosed the North Star Analytics mess, highlighted the budget issues and the unassigned tasks, and handed you the prompts.
But a diagnosis doesn't cure the patient. We need a recovery strategy that other humans can actually read and follow. Scattered information has to become a single, cohesive plan.
Which takes us into Google Docs.
Yes, but I have a major question about this step. If I go into Docs and ask an AI to write a recovery plan, aren't I just going to get a generic robotic outline? Like, step 1, assess the situation. Step 2, implement solutions. That doesn't help anyone.
And that is the exact trap people fall into when they use standalone AI tools without injecting context. They get boilerplate text.
Right.
But the magic formula outlined in the playbook prevents this. It requires 3 specific inputs: a design reference, your selected sources, and the Drive-generated prompt.
Okay, let's break the mechanics of that formula down. How does the design reference actually work?
So when you open a blank doc, you use a feature called Match Doc format. You select a previous business report you wrote, one that has your company's preferred layout, font hierarchy, and professional tone.
Oh, so it mimics your style.
Exactly. The AI analyzes the structural parameters of that document. That's your design reference. Next, you attach only the specific files the Drive triage process told you to attach. That is your source material.
Got it.
And finally, you paste in the highly specific prompt Drive wrote for you.
So you aren't starting from a blank page or some generic internet template. Gemini is extracting your actual facts, like the specific $1,000 variance, the real milestones, and embedding them into a highly specific recovery plan formatted exactly the way your company expects it to look.
It synthesizes the mess into a polished, strategic document covering resource constraints, owners, and decisions needed without sounding like a generic chatbot.
Which is fantastic for strategy. But, in my experience, a beautifully written narrative document doesn't actually hold anyone accountable.
Nope. People read paragraphs, nod their heads, and then miss their deadlines.
We need a grid. We need to know who's doing what by when.
The operational reality of any project.
Exactly. And the source material has a brilliant line about this transition into Google Sheets. It says, if the tracker takes longer to maintain than the project, you have gone too far.
Oh, we have all built those monstrous color-coded spreadsheets that require a full-time job just to update.
Yes. So the goal is to build a tracker that serves the project, rather than forcing the project to serve the tracker.
Absolutely.
So how does the AI translate paragraphs of strategy into an operational grid? Like, you repeat the handoff process, right? You import the recommended sources into Sheets, and you paste the prompt Drive gave you.
Right, but Gemini isn't just pasting text into a cell. It actually structures the tracker.
Wait, like building the columns?
Yeah, it creates the appropriate columns for tasks, owners, due dates, and status. It handles spreadsheet-specific actions. Like, it understands that status shouldn't just be open text. It needs to be a drop-down menu.
And it writes formulas. That blew my mind. It replaces static numbers with functional logic.
It's pretty incredible.
Looking back at our North Star project, we had that one unassigned SEO task. Gemini sets up the KPI section of this sheet so that if you assign an owner to that SEO task, the unassigned count automatically drops from 1 to 0.
And the completion rate automatically updates when a status changes to done.
You are generating a functional tool based on the linguistic context of your emails. How does a language model even do that?
Well, under the hood, the AI is translating natural language instructions into the underlying code or functions that power the spreadsheet. It maps the concept of, say, tracking completion to the specific formula required to calculate a percentage based on drop-down variables.
So it bridges the gap between how humans speak and how spreadsheets compute.
Exactly, which is a huge leap from just generating text.
Okay, so the team now has a functional tracker. They know what to do. But eventually, you have to present this operational reality to leadership. And let's be honest, executives do not have the time or the desire to decipher a dense spreadsheet or read a 12-page recovery document.
No, they want the 5-minute version.
The art of compression. We have to move into Google Slides. We need to take all this data and make it visual.
Right. The final deck for this executive review needs to focus strictly on the new timeline, current status, major blockers, resource constraints, and the specific decisions required to unblock that pricing issue.
But compression is arguably a much harder cognitive task for an AI than generation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Docs holds the full narrative, Sheets holds the granular detail, but Slides requires ruthless editing. You are asking the model to decide what information is safe to discard.
It is a totally different challenge. You give Slides the specific context package and a visual reference deck to work from, but, and this is important, the playbook comes with a pretty severe warning about AI and presentations.
Yes, it raises a crucial point about how large language models operate. AI has never met a paragraph it didn't want to put on a slide.
They are predictive text engines. Their inherent design is to generate more tokens to keep explaining. They basically default to verbosity.
They lack spatial awareness. Like, an AI doesn't inherently understand that a human sitting 20 feet away from a screen simply cannot read a wall of 12-point font.
Precisely. The AI processes tokens sequentially, not visually. So while Gemini can do the heavy lifting of the first pass, like structuring the presentation flow around the core facts, visual review by a human is absolutely mandatory here.
You have to go in and enforce visual hierarchy.
You must ensure it hasn't crammed a massive paragraph where a 3-word bullet point should be.
You have to act as the editor. Okay, let's look at the full picture. We took a chaotic email thread, diagnosed it with our Drive triage nurse, built a strategic recovery plan in Docs, created an automated tracker in Sheets, and compressed the entire thing into an executive presentation in Slides.
But now, the loop has to be closed.
Right. The deliverables are useless if they just sit on your hard drive.
We go back to the origin point. Gmail.
We draft a stakeholder message. We tell Anna, our executive sponsor, that the plan is ready for review. And we ping finance to unblock that pricing issue. And according to the playbook, this massive multi-app recovery task can be handled from start to finish in under 30 minutes.
Which is staggering when you evaluate the manual alternative of doing all that context transfer yourself.
It changes the math of productivity entirely.
It really does.
But, before we assume AI can flawlessly execute our jobs and we can all just go take a nap, we have to examine where the system breaks down. Knowing the limitations of a tool is arguably more important than knowing its features.
Always.
If embedded Gemini inside these Workspace apps is this interconnected and powerful, why would a user ever open the standalone Gemini app again? Like, what is the difference?
That is a critical distinction for anyone using these tools. Embedded Gemini, the sidebars inside docs or sheets, is fundamentally tied to the specific job of the application you are currently in.
So it's tuned for context-heavy execution of a known task. Formatting a tracker, summarizing a thread, drafting an outline.
Exactly. It is focused on the files directly in front of it. But if you need broad, complex reasoning, deep market research, coding assistance, or flexible, open-ended brainstorming that isn't tethered to your specific internal documents.
Then you still need the standalone app.
Yes, the embedded version is an execution engine. The standalone version is a wide-open thinking partner. Their underlying parameters are tuned for different cognitive tasks.
That makes perfect sense. And the source material highlights some critical blind spots when relying on that execution engine. What happens when the AI simply gets the facts wrong?
And this is where the human element remains non-negotiable. Gemini can and will make what I call confident mistakes.
I love that phrase, confident mistakes. It sounds so authoritative and sure of itself, while being completely, utterly wrong. Why does that happen, even when it's reading your own company files?
Because LLMs are not traditional databases. They do not look up a fact in a rigid table. They predict the next most likely word based on patterns.
Ah, right.
So it might make an unsupported assumption about a deadline based on standard business practices rather than the specific text in your email. It might assign the wrong owner to a task or misinterpret a budget variance as a surplus instead of a deficit.
Ouch.
You must meticulously double-check anything that affects budgets, timelines, or responsibilities.
Because if you send Anna a slide deck claiming the North Star budget is perfectly fine when it's actually $1,000 in the red, you cannot just tell your boss, oh, the AI sidebar made a mistake. The accountability still rests entirely on you.
Exactly. Another significant blind spot occurs with scale. Context windows, which is the amount of text an AI can hold in its short-term memory, are expanding, but they aren't infinite. If your source set in a Drive folder becomes too massive, the AI might miss a crucial file entirely. Or it might focus heavily on an older update from last month and ignore the newest version from yesterday. You have to verify that it is working from the most recent, accurate reality.
It also fundamentally doesn't own the workflow. It's an assistant, not an autonomous agent. It isn't going to look at your calendar, realize it's Friday at 4 p.m., and automatically email your boss a project update.
No, you have to initiate every single step.
You click to summarize the inbox, you trigger the drive triage, you open the doc, you paste the prompt. You are still the driver of the car.
It removes the friction of context transfer, but it does not remove the responsibility of project management. You have to guide the tool at every juncture.
Before we bring this all together, I want to share a really awesome bonus fact from the material, specifically for any students listening.
Oh yeah, this is a great update.
Google just announced that eligible U.S. college students can get Google AI Pro for free for an entire year. And for students in over 140 other countries, you can get Google AI Plus for free for a year.
Giving students early access to these tools is a massive advantage. Learning how to engineer prompts and manage complex information workloads before entering the workforce, that's going to be a critical career differentiator.
Learning how to guide the AI rather than just asking it to do your homework is a skill that will pay massive dividends. Okay, let's bring it all home. The core takeaway from everything we've explored today is this: stop treating your workspace apps as separate, isolated silos.
They aren't different rooms you walk between. They're simply different lenses through which to view the exact same project data.
Allow Gemini to handle the repetitive, exhausting work of transforming information from a conversation into a plan into a tracker, and a tracker into a presentation.
But keep your human hands firmly on the wheel when it comes to verifying the critical facts, making the final strategic decisions, and managing the human relationships with your stakeholders.
Let the AI suffer through the heavy lifting of context transfer, so you can preserve your cognitive energy for actual strategy.
It shifts your role from data entry to data evaluation. But, analyzing this entire workflow raises a really important question, something I think is worth mulling over long after this deep dive ends.
I am always here for a good provocative thought. What are you thinking?
Well, we have established that AI is now perfectly capable of doing this busy work. It can translate a messy email handover into a beautiful spreadsheet tracker, and it can send slide deck in half an hour.
And it is a massive win for immediate productivity.
Unquestionably. Nobody wants to spend 3 hours formatting a grid.
Oh.
True. But historically, doing that exact kind of repetitive information formatting busy work is how junior employees and entry-level analysts actually learn the inner workings of a business.
Oh, wow.
You learn what makes a project tick. You learn the company's priorities by being forced to manually synthesize messy details into a slide deck week after week. You absorb the context by suffering through the transfer.
That is a fascinating paradox. We are automating the exact friction that traditionally builds expertise.
Precisely. If embedded AI now takes over all that context transfer and synthesis, what happens to those traditional entry-level learning experiences?
If Gemini is instantly spotting that the SEO task is unassigned or the budget is over by $1,000, how will the next generation of workers develop the intuition to spot a failing project on their own?
Are we removing the training wheels before the writer has learned how to balance?
It really makes you wonder how the analysts of tomorrow are going to earn their stripes and develop that gut instinct for business logic. You start out just wanting to clean up a messy project folder, and you end up questioning the future of how human beings learn their trades.
It's a lot to think about.
It really is. We started today talking about that awful feeling of being handed a chaotic web of scattered files and endless emails, the pure manual labor of copying and pasting just to figure out where to begin. Hopefully, you now have a playbook to navigate that muddy water, to let the tools do the synthesis so you can focus on the strategy. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We highly encourage you to try building your own connected workflow today. Go see what you can build when you stop fighting the context transfer. Catch you next time.